So, inviting you, Ardaas ji, to share one tool that we can take away from a yogic perspective on what you would suggest for the audience today to really be with and reflect.
Yes, good. I would start from the most basic one, which is the breath. Starting from simply a deep breath. That's there's a few things in this in the breath that are very useful. But the breath we consider in yoga that this is the linking element that connects the body, emotions, the mind, and the spirit. Connects everything. So the body breathes, and the breathing in the body causes a lot of things happening within from the very first. Just simply, inhaling is like hugging your heart. The lungs are hugging your heart. So just inhaling is already like a little massage for your heart. Is inhaling deep is putting pressure on the how's it called, vagus nerve, which is stimulating the parasympathetic system. So it's calming you. The parasympathetic nervous system is to calm you. So just inhaling is already creating a lot of things that are going to be affecting us in many levels. That's only the physical thing. But and also inhaling, the diaphragm goes down and massages all the organs. So it's like a deep internal massage, incredibly good. Emotionally, the motions is, we say, energy in motion. And what thing is most in motion than the breath, right? That's constant, is continuous. And the emotions are intimately linked to the breath. We talk in yoga how emotions get trapped in the diaphragm. They get kind of like a cellular memory into the diaphragm. So fear or anger or sadness is gonna have a different signature in the diaphragm. Breathing in one way, or you breathe in one way or another depending on the emotional state that you are in the moment. So I believe psychiatrists and maybe psychologists as well, that they watch the breath of the client to know what's happening within, because sometimes they don't tell you the emotion. So you can watch the breath and understand the emotion that's happening. That's the emotional connection. The mind is connected to the breath. And when they say, oh, you're getting too troubled by your thoughts, well, take a few deep breaths. It works. And it's a deep connection between the state of the mind and the flowing of the breath. So if the mind is disturbed, the breath is disturbed. So that's very revealing as well. And the spirit, we say inspire, to inhale, to bring the spirit in. So as the breath comes in, we are talking about the breath of the spirit is coming into us. So the breath is the most fundamental thing in yoga that connects all the different elements. And even if somebody is bedridden, they cannot move their physical body. If they can breathe consciously, they can do yoga,
Mm.
because you can breathe in particular patterns and particular ways, and you can direct what is. I mean, they can do yoga on that level, no, even on the physical level, even if they cannot move the body. Now, what would be the tooltip for today? Would be just to watch the breath to start with, and a few things. One is as we inhale, the diaphragm has to come down to make space for the lungs. And many people, and especially people who suffer some trauma, but also not just trauma, people who smoke or asthmatic or any kind of uh, something that is linked to the respiratory system, can also have a strong impact on the diaphragm. But if the diaphragm is locked, there could be a situation that we call paradoxical breathing, which means that when you inhale, instead of the diaphragm going down and the navel coming out, the navel goes in. So one little clue for our audience would be to just try to inhale deeply. And if you feel that the navel is going in any way, that is a sign of something that we need to correct. Because in the natural breath, the navel should be going out. Now, when we have experienced trauma, or not even just trauma, but just stress, in a stressful situation, one of the stress mechanisms of the body is to tighten the muscles in case of the what you mentioned, the fight or flight mechanism. So the navel goes in. So if we feel that there is some stress, if there is too much stress in our life, we may experience it like that. The navel is going in. And if the navel is going in, especially when we inhale, that means the diaphragm is going against us, ourselves. It should be going down. If it's going up, it's going against us. So that means that we have an internal fight on every single breath, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I find that maybe 10 to 15% of people who come into a yoga class, I have experienced 10 to 15% of them, they have this paradoxical breathing, which is amazing. I had it myself before I started yoga. So my first tip would be learn to retrain your body to do full breaths. You can learn pretty easily in a few weeks of retraining yourself. When you inhale, let the belly button go out, and then the chest, and then the upper chest, and then on the exhale, the upper chest, then the chest, and the belly button in. Yeah, so it's like abdominal breathing, pectoral breathing, and the higher part, yeah, clavicular breathing, and then the clavicles, the chest, and finally the abdomen. And if you can learn to do just full deep yogic breath, what we call, in just three deep breaths has the capacity to reset you and find some rebalance yourself so you can process the emotion of whatever is happening and not accumulate more things into the subconscious that are going to be triggers for the ego and the trauma personality within, if we could say.
Wow, that's really amazing tip for us today, Ardasji. So three whole yogic breaths can create a lot of transformation. So we invite you all to do whole breaths, observing the belly button and your chest and the clavicle. And send us in some of your comments of how that worked for you, if you were to able to engage in it, and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for that amazing tool, because breath is what connects us all to mind, body, and spirit, and brings us back into our body after disconnection.
I think we are in a great spot to give our suggestion for this week, our yogic,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes. What
Uh,
would you recommend, Yogi Ji, for maybe the frontal lobe, or what would you suggest?
I think I would tackle this last point we are talking right now. I mean, we already mentioned last week about how deep breaths can help, and particularly making sure that the navel moves in the right direction when you are inhaling and exhaling. And if we are talking about being able to choose, the one thing that is associated with choice that is autonomous in the body is the breath, right? The breath is autonomous. It happens by itself, just like the stress response happens by itself. But if you can control the breath, if you wish, then consciously changing your breath is going to make you more available to change other patterns in yourself. So I would say just when you capture yourself, you catch yourself as feeling some of the symptoms of stress. Now, I'm not talking about trauma necessarily, but stress is the consequence of trauma. So we're going to go about the stress, going to go into stress. Then choosing to consciously breathe is going to have a tremendous impact. And there's a number of breaths that you can do. There's a number of different kind of breaths depending on what you need in the specific moments. The most basic will be three deep breaths that everybody talks about, and making sure that when you're doing this deep breath, the navel is moving. So navel out when you inhale, then the chest, then the clavicles, and then clavicles, then chest, and the navel. So this kind of breath from the bottom up and then top down, that's one full yogic breath, and three of them is going to help you to capture again your capacity to choose. But that was not the tip I would like to give today. I wanted to give another in relationship to this detecting the stress. Yeah, I mentioned when you detect that you are in stress, then you do these deep breaths. But how do you know when you're in stress? Sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we don't realize. It's like when, some people are like this with the shoulder. They tell me, oh, can you lower the shoulder? Oh, yeah, I didn't realize, right? And we were holding all this stress. And So we talked a little bit about how stress affects the nervous system, and when we are fighting a lion, the body doesn't need to be digesting what you just ate. You need to run, so the digestive system is going to shut down. Your heart is going to pump faster, so that it brings the nutrients that you need for the muscles to move, and you can run. So there's going to be a higher heart rate and higher blood pressure. If you encounter some thorns along the way and you hurt your skin, you don't want to be one, oh, my skin. No, a lion comes. So don't worry about the skin. So the body becomes insensitive. That's how we end up. If we hold a situation of stress for a long time, we end up numb. So numbness and poor digestion, lack of sleep, all these things which are symptoms of a stress that has been carried over for a long time. These are some of the things that we can observe. But there's another thing that I would like to point out. We show it in our faces. Our face is um, like a barometer of what's happening inside. And actually, it's a survival mechanism also for the species. Because if you see somebody with a very stressed out face, you are like, oh, maybe there's a lion. And I haven't seen it, but I see the other one with the face of the stress, then I know I have to get stressed out. So our face sometimes shows, well, our face always shows this stress unless you have an incredible amount of control of your face. And some actors and politicians and people like that learn to train to do that. But in general, our face is a manifestation of our emotional state. So a good approach from the yogic perspective is to be mindful of the face and conscious of the face. And if we detect tension in the face, and actually different areas of the face are going to reflect tension in different areas of the body, but that's a whole science, and I haven't studied that in detail, but it's fascinating. But just the fact that we can detect tension in the face would be a sign that we are going through. It could be emotional manifestation, like sadness is going to manifest in some way, surprise is in another way, fear is a different signature. So noticing those signs in the face can tell you that something emotional is happening, because we don't always have the awareness, especially as men, because men are less aware of what's happening within us. Yeah, we don't speak so much about the emotions, but we generally just express them out loud and sometimes with our face. So if we are yogis and we want to be mindful of what's happening within, and sometimes we don't have that awareness of the emotion that is happening, but we can be aware of what's happening with the face. So
Mm-hmm.
if noticing tension around the eyebrows, for example, that's worry. Tension around the upper lip, that could be disgust, or could be anger, could be manifest like when we are angry. So if you feel that there is some tension happening in the mouth, you can consciously, with those three conscious breaths that I just mentioned before, as you do the breath, right? Let's say we detect some tension when in a situation where we shouldn't need to be tense. We are with our partner, or we are with our boss, or with our children, or with somebody that is not a lion, and we are not in danger, but we have been accumulating stress in the relationship to that person. Okay, I'm with them and I detect within my face some signs of tension. Okay, as I am detecting that, I didn't notice I was tense within, but my face is telling me that. So if I notice that my face is like that, I can do these long, deep breaths that I mentioned with the navel moving in the right way. And as I am exhaling, I am consciously trying to exhale out that tension and release whatever tension has accumulated in the face. Now, I'm not saying that tension is bad. There is the right way of use of tension as well. Tension is important, even in relationships. Sexual tension is fundamental for a relationship, a sexual relationship. But if you find yourself in an emotional situation and your face is reflecting that you are under stress when you don't need to be in stress because of the circumstances, 3 deep breaths at least, and on the exhale, consciously relax those muscles of the face that you felt that triggered with the circumstance. And that's already going to have an impact on all the system.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Adaji. So inhale, and with every exhale, imagine that you're releasing that stress and tension in whichever part of the face that you're feeling it in, and using the three deep breaths to able to do that.
And
Thank.
because the inhale is going up, it's like belly, abdomen, uh, chest, and then clavicles is going up. So at the moment that you are high, in the high place of your body is your face. So that's when you feel your face. And then on the exhale, as you exhale down, then the face releases the tension. That would be the full tip. Yes. All right, that's really nice. I think it's a good place to be approaching the end of the episode. That feels quite complete. Let me go into the tips and tricks from yoga section for this. Um, the, before we before I give some little tip, we will do a special breath today. Let's just say, okay, the last two episodes we were talking about how trauma manifests in us. How does it occur? And the effects that it has on the body and the stress and the 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 wounds and the beliefs and the narratives and all that. We were exploring all this, and maybe by today's episode, somebody may be thinking, well, there's something I need to heal, and so I need to start uh, dealing with these basic needs of my baby, of my inner child. Yeah, so for us to explore healing is to embark on a journey through an unknown territory. We talked about this a little bit the other day. And because it's the unknown, we are afraid of the unknown. We are not going to be able to face the fear of the unknown if we are not feeling safe. So I think this is a good starting place. Feeling safe means my basic needs are covered as well. So can we check that the basic baby needs are also covered? How are we doing with my diet, with my sleep and the exercise and the comfort of my body? Do I have pain in my body? If so, can I deal with it somehow? So many people don't go to the doctor. They take they have a cat. They will bring to acupuncture. They will do homeopathy for the cat. They will give massage for the cat, but they themselves, they have some issue. They don't go to the doctor. So if you have an issue, what's the problem? No, can I find comfort in my body? Am I refilling my energy levels properly? So how am I charging myself up with energy? Am I doing it not just with food, but other ways? Yeah, and the same with the mind and entertainment and the heart as well. And so just to go back to the baby's needs and to check right now, me as an adult, how many of these needs are fully satisfied, at least satisfied. I'm not saying, overflowing with it, but, enough to satisfy that, so that if I feel safe, I can embark on a journey of discovering a new part of myself that I don't know about. And that's going to be scary. So let me at least feel that my basic needs are covered in that sense. So that's one thing. And taking it from here, I'm going to show a little breath that helps us feel that we are not lacking anything, that there's nothing lacking. Because sometimes we feel, well, I'm in a good position in my life, I'm earning money, I have food on my table, and I am, I am in a position where I could feel safe, and yet I don't. I could feel that I am, you know, supported by the universe and by myself. I have food on my table, and yet I'm feeling this lack and operating from a scarcity mentality. Okay, so if you feel like that, then this breath can help to feel that we are not lacking anything. So it's very simple. You cross the fingers and you put them on your lap. You cannot see it on the camera, those who are watching the video, but I'm putting my fingers crossed, interlocked, sorry, on my lap, relaxed. And I mentioned how the needs of the body, and particularly the in general, is associated to the first three chakras. That's more connected to these survival and basic needs. So we're gonna inhale through the mouth, and that is like sipping water through a straw, and that is gonna go down to the belly. Yeah, you were talking before about some people say, "Oh, my stomach." Yeah, I feel it in my stomach. It's more down into the belly more than the stomach, but that's the region where we feel the emptiness. And so we're going to feel that emptiness with prana, with energy. So even though the lungs are the ones who are going to receive the air, if you suck it like this, like a straw, it will go deeper and it will go into the stomach. So you inhale through this straw and you do one inhale per second, but you don't exhale, meaning that the air is going to come out somehow, maybe through the pores, who knows, maybe through the ears, but we don't care about the exhale. We don't worry about the exhale. We just care about inhaling. So in reality, what it becomes, I don't know if anybody can hear it properly, but it will be something like, and I'm not worrying about the exhale. I'm just inhaling, 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 inhaling. And the air brings prana. The air is charged with prana energy. So we are gonna a little bit overcharge the prana. So I don't recommend this to do it every day, anyone on all the time. I'm just saying when you feel that you are lacking and you're feeling maybe exhausted energetically, or you're just feeling this void within, then do this no more than 5 minutes. It's important, and we don't want to get too much into the clouds. But it's going to refill my battery, my energy, and feel that I'm, because if we don't have energy, how are we going to face the challenges of life and the work and the world outside of us? So at least energetically, and this sense that I have a void within, is going to feel that it's fulfilled. And so with that fullness, I can feel, okay, I don't lack anything. Okay, I can adventure into the unknown, right? So maximum 5 minutes, sips of air, like if it was water through a straw with the lips in a circle, and one per second, and don't worry about the exhale. And don't meditate, don't do any weird thing. You can keep your eyes open. You don't even have to meditate or anything. Just sipping energy and feeling the abundance within, and feeling I don't like anything, I don't lack anything. Just like that sense. You can even do it just 3 minutes. That would be already enough, but maximum 5. Don't do it more than 5, and see how it feels, and let us know.
Yes, later, but over to you, Ardaas ji, to teach us today the yogic tip for emotions, I believe.
Yeah, let me just say one thing, because if we don't if we don't feel responsible for how we feel, if we say no, I'm feeling like this because they left me, or because they abandoned me, or because they whatever, you don't have any control over your feelings and your fantasies of what happened, right? The imagination that you were creating, that narrative. And the moment you take responsibility for how you feel, okay, now that you're responsible, you can also change it. So that's the origin of being able to change your experience. But yeah, I wanted to give that tip for today. Today is a tip about the mind, about when the thought starts just before it becomes the feeling and the emotion. So before, in that gap, in that little gap between the thought originating and becoming something else. And that's when we detect one of these thoughts that are karmic thoughts, or like mind games. Yeah, these the victim, for example, like, oh, it always happens to me, or oh, nobody loves me. Whatever is that phrase. That's something that I like to call the anti-mantra. It's like almost the opposite of mantra. But is today's tip is about this exactly, mantras. Because if you notice the word mantra and you turn it around, you have trauma. Trauma. Because man comes from the mind. And the tra could be a number of things. In yoga, tra can be like a trap. And sometimes we may experience that our mind is like a trap that entraps us, and it generates a certain number of thoughts and emotions, like this unholy alliance, that trap us in a state from which is very hard to get out. And the opposite of this is mantra. Yeah, mantra, that's trauma, I would say. Mantra is something that traps the mind, or something that is going to protect us from the mind, yeah, by trapping it and traversing it, yeah, traverse, to cross. So to cross through the mind, when the mind is creating an idea or a thought that is going to be toxic, it's going to take you to the same place that you know that is not healthy, then there is a way to cut it, and that's with the mantra. And for mantras, there's obviously many kinds of mantras, and you're very welcome to find one that it aligns with whatever your spiritual alignment is. So, for example, if you are um, a Muslim, you could say Allah or Allahu Akbar. And if you are a Christian, you could say something in connection with Jesus or with Mary or Alleluia. Or there's all these sacred words, let's say, can have the power to awaken the witness and cut through the mind and protect us from the mind and protect your mind also from outside experiences and outside influences, because those negative thoughts that we often have, they don't necessarily come just from within. Sometimes they do, from the subconscious, and we don't notice where they come from. But sometimes they come from without. They come from the environment and the people around us thinking negative thoughts, and we pick them up, and then we think they are ours. But there is a way to protect your mind. So that's with mantra. So whether you detect a thought that you don't want to let it grow within you, or whether you want to protect your thoughts from whatever environment you are in, then mantra is the key. So let me just share a very basic classical one from yoga. That would be inhaling Ong, exhaling Sohang. Ong, Sohang. Sometimes it's just Sohang. Some people just do inhale So, exhale Hang. Or you can inhale Ong and exhale Sohang. And because the last weeks we were giving some tips connected to the breath, I think it makes sense that we can incorporate it now. We can include, as you do some long deep breaths, as you practicing long breathing that we were doing the last days, and moving the navel in the right way and so on. At the same time, you inhale long and exhale Sohang. And with the Sohang, you are letting go of whatever is like the thought comes, I'm not feeling worthy. No. Om Sohan. And then you let it go, and you release that thought from your system through the breath and through the mantra. So the mantra creates this protective layer around your mind, and also protect you, the witness, from whatever is happening in the mind. It does this double effect. So that's today's tip. Well, what we do, I'm gonna adapt a little bit the tip I was for today to what you just said right now, because we're gonna do something for the vagus nerve, and it's gonna be nice, a nice way to activate it. And so the vagus nerve is activated just by doing a very deep breath. Is already stimulating it. The lungs and the pressure that we create in the chest cavity is already gonna be stimulating the vagus nerve. But we're gonna do something more specific. So the tip for today is Navi breath mantra, right? If you feel yourself in a moment when you are misaligned, when you are getting triggered, and you're feeling that something is happening, that you are maybe getting out of control of your mind or your emotions, or your whatever situation is arising, if you can find a place, a safe space, where you can for a moment express your body without anybody around. If you can close the office, or close yourself into your room, or whatever, if you can isolate yourself for a moment and put yourself in a different physical posture, so change your body basically. If there is lots of stress or problems, or your mind is very active, even an upside down posture. And try, when we think of our problems, when we are doing something like shoulder stand, which is with the feet up and the head down, we think differently. So if you've never tried it and you are listening to this podcast, then next time your mind is worrying about some problem, put yourself upside down and try to think of the problem and see what happens. And maybe you reach a different conclusion. But basically, the tip for today is this: change the body posture, do something different. If you know some yoga, do some asanas, maybe a sun salutation or three, or at the least, like what we say, like dog pose, like the triangle pose, that we are in a triangle, upside down, and stay there for a few minutes. Now, after that, after you come out of that, if you can rest for a minute, and then here comes the breath and the mantra. Yeah, the breath should be still active while we are doing the exercise. But as you come out of the physical, of the asana, then putting both hands on the chest. And left hand always goes first. In if anybody's watching this in YouTube, my image is reversed, but my left is the first one that goes on the chest, and then the right hand on top. Pressing a little bit, that's stimulating the vagus nerve, which Nyana was just mentioning, how it comes through the throat and down from the chest, through the chest. So you press a little bit and choose a mantra that you love and just chant it. Because that's going to, chanting mantras is already working on the breath, because to chant, you have to regulate the breath. And what I mentioned about 4 breaths per minute, if you have some long mantras, it's going to make you breathe in that pattern anyway. And the mantra is going to protect the mind. So if you feel yourself getting out of control, getting the trauma, getting triggered, or something that you feel some safe space, do some asanas, change their physical body. And then even if it's just 3 minutes, okay, 3 minutes is already enough to change the pattern. And then hands on the chest, and then chant the mantra out loud if you can. If you cannot, if you are in a place, public or in a, outside or somewhere where you cannot find your own space, then change your physical body by stretching. Just do a few stretches. Nobody will care if you stretch. You can be in a train station and just stretch yourself a little bit, the arms behind the back, a little bit, opening the chest. That's also going to stimulate the vagus nerve. And after the few stretches, hands on the chest for a moment, or if even that you cannot do, at least do the breath and the mantra within. So breathe deeply, moving the navel and chant the mantra within the head. And that's already going to have a tremendous impact. Hopefully, you can try it and let us know.
Thank you so muji for that, Ardasji. Nabhi, breath, and mantra. It activates the vagus nerve, and I think that's so. I was just thinking, maybe that's what I'm gonna do as one of the first things clients come in is shoulder stand, please. Thank you,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
and that'll be all. Thank you.
Uh, yeah, and the Navi breath mantra also connect to the animal, human, angel. So Navi, the
Mm.
animal, and breath is the human, and mantra is the angel. So we recognize our three aspects, and we stay human. We stay in the heart. Yeah.
Ah. And so, with that, I think there's nothing more to say than to stay in the heart with a slight pressure because that also activates the vagus nerve. And with Nabi breath and mantra, connect to the animal, the human, and the angel. That's beautiful.
Uh, Thank you very much, Nina. Thank you,
Thank you
everyone,
so
for
much,
listening.
everyone.
Until next week.
Until next week. What is our tip, yogic tip for the day, for this episode, and for today?
Well, I had prepared one, but now I'm thinking of another. I'm going to give both. So
Okay.
the
So
one I
let's
had,
be holy.
yeah, yeah, the one I was thinking about today, it was about bringing up the warrior in us,
Mm.
to be able to channel the inner survivor within us, because this whole season is about trauma. If you went through trauma and you are here listening, you survived it, right? So at the minimum, you are a survivor, and at the minimum, you found in yourself the capacity to fight. So that rather than fight against the world, fight against karma, fight against anything, can I empower myself with the qualities of the warrior to face whatever is coming ahead of me, and to be able to face towards my destiny, and not procrastinate, but to actually move towards it. So for that, we in the last weeks we were doing some breaths, and we were doing some more subtle work. For channeling the warrior, I would utilize the body, because the body has an incredible capacity to make us feel in specific ways. So if you put yourself in a particular posture, it makes you feel like that. So I think most people know what the warrior posture is in yoga, and there's a few variations. There's one in which you are holding like a bow and an arrow, but there is, like in hatha, there's some with the arms stretched and palms down, and you can look in Google what's the warrior pose, and you can choose the one that is choice. Yeah, you can choose the one that most appeals to you. Generally, the legs are open and one knee is flexed, and you're extending one arm forward, and the other maybe is flexed, maybe is extended, and you are looking towards the horizon. Now, you are looking towards the horizon because that's your destiny, right? In the front, following the hand in front, looking towards the horizon. Your body is on the side, because if they throw arrows at you, it's a smaller target. So you are on the side, opening the chest, and the arms are going to be opening the heart chakra. And the heart chakra is linked to consciousness, and therefore you're going to be more capable of doing choices, right? Because you're going to be more conscious, and also to heal the wounds in the heart. So it's a lovely, lovely posture, and you can just call upon your inner warrior. So if you find yourself in a challenging situation, um, for a few weeks, do the warrior every morning and see how it feels afterward. That's one posture, by the way, that we particularly recommend for men to
Mhm.
practice the warrior, but it's good for everybody. And the other tip that it just occurred to me after what we were talking is that the minimum amount of change we can bring into the world, we can choose to change our attitude. And in yoga, we say attitude of gratitude. So it would be lovely. As like the two recommendations for today would be to start the morning with a warrior, and that's the warrior side. That's the one of the cheeks, and the other cheek is the saint. So end the day with the saint face, and get to be grateful for everything that we have in our lives, everything that's happened, everything that we can observe in our environment, the blessings that come upon us, and just to be grateful for that. So attitude of gratitude. Right. I mean, the way you are saying it, that's why I was very careful with the language, because we don't want to be integrating limiting beliefs,
Mhm.
right? Or behaviors. That's the thing. We have to recognize, yes, some things need to be integrated, and we need to explore them, and we need to receive the gift. Some things we don't need to integrate, those things which are going to be limiting us. And you already mentioned the key ingredient, but let me just say like that. Our behavior is going to be linked to our beliefs. So whatever we believe, we're going to behave according to that. So we have to work on the beliefs to change the behavior, right?
I want to reiterate that really strongly is that our
Yeah,
limiting beliefs drive our behaviors.
yeah,
And that if we have to understand our behaviors, we have to go back to our limiting beliefs.
right. And they are beliefs about the world, and they are beliefs about ourselves and our role in the world. So, and you just said it. Forgiveness is one fundamental aspect, because many of these limiting beliefs, particularly about myself and my relationship to the world, are going to be linked to mind games. How I think that my importance in the world around me is, which could be exaggerated in the like bigger than it is, like narcissistic behavior, or it can be lowered, like feeling powerless, and it can go in either way, making yourself higher or making yourself lower. But no matter what the belief is, that belief, if you go deep inside, there could be something that needs to be forgiven from that.
Mhm.
So forgiveness is a fundamental element. Now, I just mentioned narcissism. I'm not sure what would be the component in that it needs to be forgiven. I would have to think about that. But there is a good range of mind games that all spring from ideas of guilt and innocence and shame, and being guilty or um, victim. Yeah, victim. You are either the victim or the guilty, right? And they are very often connected, both of them. So you were just saying from victim to victor, yeah. So and particularly somebody who has gone through trauma, generally they feel the victim, but very quickly we become the perpetrators of the same thing that has happened to us. Then we feel guilty about that. In any way, we have to forgive the ones who did that thing to us, and we need to forgive ourselves for doing things to others and doing things to ourselves. So like the coming back to the addiction, the one who is an addict he's doing it to himself, and he's going to feel guilty about being addicted, and particularly if they want to stop the addiction, but they feel guilty about it and ashamed of it, and there has to be forgiveness there. Otherwise, the the mind game is too powerful. The belief that I cannot let it go, and also because I'm ashamed, and I'm ashamed of not being able to let go, and it's just reinforcing itself. And unless you remove the power to the emotion that is behind that belief, then the emotion, you cannot let go of the emotion. So that power through the forgiveness, it can be dissolved, if you wish the word dissolved, and that way we can tune into the most essential part of us, which doesn't feel shame. Our soul doesn't feel shame. It's our ego that is on top. Yeah, it doesn't feel guilty. That the soul doesn't feel guilty. In fact, we don't believe the soul has sins in
Mm.
yoga. We don't say it's a sinful soul or cleanse the sins from your soul. Soul doesn't have any sins. The ego may produce lots of things that can be toxic in a way, but the soul itself is pure. It's just a matter of removing enough layers to go to the core. And those layers are associated to the ego, and the ego is intimately associated to the development of the mind, the way we understand it in yoga. So we say that the ego is during the first 7 years, and many of these limiting beliefs will start there, and the behaviors accompanying them. So in a way, we are talking about the mind, yeah, and the ego linked to the mind.
And so, what would you say from a yogic perspective would be a tool today that we could use to work through some of the limiting beliefs or breaking free from them? Because the limiting beliefs, I think, everything that we do is coming from the space of a limiting belief because we're working from the mind and the ego, which is, oh, I in our daily language, if we hear, oh, I can't do this, I'm too slow, oh, I can't do that, I'm too old, oh, I can't do that because I'm too, I don't know maths really well. And everything is a limiting belief. Everything is saying I can't, no, is limiting um the potential of the individual based on something that happened in the past and has nothing to do with the current and the present truth. And most of us believe, like we said, that that is who we are, and we're saying here that that is not who we are. Who we are is the true self, that is the soul that rests, which is infinite. And that in getting to know our true self, whether through psychology, through yogic wisdom, allows us to open up this part of our essence that we haven't actually tapped into before. And we will find that we aren't limited in the way that our mind makes us believe, these mind games that you said, that we are limited.
All right, so I
Uh,
will give a tool for doing that from the yogi perspective, but I would like to ask you first to if you do you have tools from the because it's so much psychology beliefs. Do you have tools from psychology to do that?
yeah, so I mean, the language we use is um, today when we work with clients is to help them recognize what is their emotion. And when they say the emotion, we say, okay, if the emotion could speak, what would it say? It may say, I'm whatever it needs to say, and then we ask it how far back it goes, and what is the belief of this child when he was he was going through whatever he was going through or she was going through. For example, bullying example, and it's like, I'm weak, and that's the journey, that's the start of a limiting belief. Or um, I'm alone. Those are limiting beliefs. Or I'm unworthy of love. Or nobody likes me. um, Everything is really hard for me, or I'm unlucky. And these are things that we hear a lot in therapy, and once that shows up, then that's the journey of starting inquiry of disintegrating, dismantling, dissolving these beliefs away from the individual's narrative of what is truth and real in this current moment. And that allows that part to be integrated without the belief being present in their thing. And then to recognize that, okay, sometimes it may pop up again, but to recognize it's a belief, it's not who I am. Because of the nature of the mind, and because we are so identified with it, with some of our beliefs, example, I'm not good enough, that it will keep showing up in our lives in different ways. It'll find its sneaky way back into our old patterns if we're not aware and conscious of it sneaking up on us again. So we are, through that journey, clients start to become aware that, oh, okay, I recognize, and there's that belief again, right? And sometimes for these beliefs to may never leave, I don't know, but at least I've noticed with time, even through my own journey, that sense of, no, that is not who I am. It's an old belief, can become a very strong way of saying, okay, I'm not gonna listen to it. I'm gonna continue to do what is feeling right in my gut, in my intuition, and I'm not gonna listen to that voice, because that could be the voice of the superego or the inner critic, or me going back, finding a escape now from doing what I need to do.
Right. That sounds like one of the tips we gave a few episodes back. Like, I'm not going to listen to that voice as like the cutting of the thought
Yeah.
and putting the mantra instead. No, like when some thought comes and is disturbing, you just cut it and put a mantra instead.
Yes.
Yeah, good. All right. So, um, I think it will depend on the person and it will depend on the situation. But actually, I'm gonna sometimes take it the other way around. Rather than removing the belief, let's bring it to the extreme. Sometimes it helps. Like, for example, um, what was it like? Well, I'm different, something like that, right? Okay, I'm different. If I'm different from everybody. I'm different from everybody else, and I'm unique in that way. I'm unique. Okay, I'm unique, right? So it's like, how is it you take it to the different, yeah, you take it through the same path that it was taking you, and you felt bad about it, to get to a point where you can reinforce yourself. So I'm alone. Okay, I'm alone. I'm alone in life. Okay, I'm alone in life. So I can only learn to depend on myself and put it, to be, to do what I need to do by what I have to do. So now, if I'm really, truly, absolutely alone, I don't care what they say, what they think, what they're gonna tell me I have to do. I'm gonna do what I feel I have to do. So I'm gonna take it alone. So I'm not necessarily saying this is 100% healthy yet, but it's a good point to stop feeling bad about that, no? I'm powerless. Things happen to me, I have no control over them. Yes, I have no control. Absolutely, we don't have any control. We are totally powerless. And you know what? We don't have, I'm weak. Yeah, that's like being powerless. Yes, we are weak. We are powerless. And you know what? There is a universe that is guiding these actions. And I cannot trust in myself because I make mistakes. So I'm going to have to trust in something bigger than me, something more greater, something divine. Yeah. So you can take the belief that is pushing you down and in somehow utilizing it to move you in the direction that you want to go, towards the spirit or towards the soul or the essence. It's kind of like Aikido, somebody's going to attack you and you take their energy and you redirect it and you move it somewhere else. And
Yeah.
then it's like a dance. You're doing like a dance with the aggressor, and this you're dancing with the dragon. Look, that's the That's a technique for today, dancing with the dragon. But so yeah, that would be one technique, one idea to really take the limiting belief, reduce it, because if you truly take it to the absurd, sometimes really it's just the ego is false. Okay, ego is false identity. So if you take a belief and it's limiting you, if you take it and you analyze it to the deepest ends, it's going to become absurd because it's false. So some truth is going to reveal itself in a greater way, and you can sometimes get to the truth through that belief. And so you don't have to remove the belief anymore. You know what? Yes, I'm powerless. I'm gonna bow. I'm gonna bow to the divine. I'm gonna bow every day and leave it in the hands of the divine. I'm gonna let God do what He has to do. And I'm gonna let go. And I'm not gonna take it anymore. I'm not gonna be taking responsibilities that are not mine. I'm not gonna be taking all these things on my shoulders which are not mine. I'm just gonna let it go. I'm powerless. And there could be a really empowering feeling in that. It's like surrendering, right? It's like, oh, I'm weak. The kid who was bullied. I'm weak. They abuse me. Blah blah blah. Okay. So you feel like a victim. You feel small. You feel, you know what? Yeah, I'm powerless. Yeah. Which has power? Who has power? God has power. All right. I'm gonna surrender to that power. And you utilize that same energy, but rather than surrendering from a fight and from somebody who's gonna harm you, you surrender to the divine.
Mm.
I remember I played this game a little bit. There was one time when I was little, I wasn't chosen for sports. When they were doing the football clubs, they picked the boys, and I would be the last one. And I'm like, okay, they don't want to choose me. So you can either say, well, they don't choose me because God has chosen you for something else, which means to be in a way alone, or they don't choose me, so I have to choose myself. Right? That's the other end that you can get. You get to God or you get to you. So it's like if you take it to the extreme, it's gonna end up in you and your essence, or end up towards the divine. So that's a way to use the limiting beliefs. And the other exercise I had thought about, I've given thoughts of, tips for pranayam, mantra, and posture even. Today would be a little meditation, which would be just to close our eyes, and whatever thought comes to mind, not try to stop the thoughts because that's fighting against yourself, but just let the thoughts come, and beliefs may come with it. If the thought comes, let's notice if there is a belief behind, and just realize that we are not that. For whatever comes to the mind, most of the time, 99%, whatever we associate with, that's not me, and start peeling layers away. So the limiting beliefs go associated with the limited identification that we have with those beliefs. I identify I'm the kind of person who believes that. So am I that? No, I'm not that. Okay, I let it go. Am I that? I'm not that. I'm letting it go. And then slowly we peel away the layers of being a man, a teacher, and a father, a brother, or whatever, an engineer, whatever. You start peeling away all those layers and trying to find the essence, the deepest essence. And it would be like a little meditation. It's kind of non-attachment, yeah, no attachment to any identification that comes until we get to the essence, yeah, who I am behind all those things that I am observing and that I think that I pay so much attention and they are so important to me. Which is also another way of looking like, when this life ends, will this carry on with me or not? Whatever I'm valuing so much, whatever I'm putting so much weight. For example, a belief could be, you believe you have to be right. Somebody needs to feel that they are right, and they have to prove their point, and they are super extremely intellectual, and they are always trying to demonstrate everything they're saying and justify their actions. And is that something you're going to take with you when this life ends? That's another way of drastically cutting the need to invest all your life in trying to be right. Yeah, all that time, all that energy trying to prove you're right. What for? Who cares? At the end of the day, someday we'll die. And okay, you're right. What do you want? You want a medal? You're not going to take the medal with you when you die, you know? So in a way, that's putting into perspective what's truly important and what's the true essence that is going to carry on with you. So those are my tips for today.
What would be then, since we're coming to a close, I'd asked you about strengthening the intuition, is you said that there would be a breath
Oh,
or
yes, yes.
that
Yeah,
you share with us that would help us strengthen our intuition.
there is one little breath to build intuition, and it's from Kundalini Yoga. So if we are doing this, I would recommend to tune in first, yeah, and then close it. But it's basically you interlock the fingers and you stretch the index fingers. And you put this in front of your face, not like in front of the face, maybe a little bit lower, so that, let's say, kind of like the fingertips of your index fingers are in line with your nose, kind
Mm.
of, yeah. And you can even look at the fingertips, but close the eyes almost completely. You leave one little thin, um, how do you say that? Like a
Well,
space in the eyes so that the light comes in. You
mm,
can see a little bit of light, or you can see a little bit the fingertips, and you focus the eyes there. And the breath is very specific. You inhale through the mouth in a circle 4 times to get full. So inhale 25% of the capacity, 25, 25, 25. So and then you exhale through the nose in one. So it's inhale, 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 inhale through the mouth, exhale 1 time through the nose, kind of like this. Kind of like this, and you keep the rhythm. So it's 4 inhales, 1 exhale, that's 5 seconds, more or less.
mm,
While looking at the fingertips, that's gonna stimulate the third eye, and it may become very heavy.
mm.
The forehead may become very heavy, but if you allow it, at some point it may dissolve itself and be released. And there is no time limit really for this exercise, so you can do it 11 or 15, 16 minutes, something like that. It's even fine. But even if just 3 minutes would already have some effect. Try to relax the shoulders and the body, keep the heart open. Even though the hands are in front, don't close the heart. Keep the heart open and the shoulders down. And yeah, just doing that focused breath.
What is our tip today from a yogic perspective that can connect, that you would like to share with all of us?
So today I'm going to suggest an exercise. I'm going to try to put in connection everything we talked right now. So it will be an exercise on the sunrise. And
Mm,
sometimes when we see when the sun is rising in the horizon through the first middle of the first half of the sun, we can watch the sun. And the second half is already dangerous for the eyes. It's not good to look at the sun directly, but you can look at the sun when it's rising. So I'm going to suggest tree pose, which is a very most people know tree pose. Otherwise, you can look at it in Google. You can look how it is, but it's basically standing up on one leg, the other one is folded, and the hands in prayer or the hands high above. But you can stay in prayer, looking at the sunrise and staying balanced. And that it's going to represent a few things. One is like finding my own balance. Second is I'm facing forward to the rising sun. This is like turning around in the horse, and
mm,
you are facing a rising sun because the day is ahead of you, right? Your life is ahead of you, and where is the how much shining is going to happen? So the is like opening up of new opportunities. The sun is rising. The sun is rising to opportunities, to a new life, and life aligned with destiny rather than like a faithful existence, living karma. So facing the sun, facing the sunrise, looking at the sunrise. The light of the sun is like the light of the soul, So the hands in prayer mudra, and it's awakening your own soul, and sharing that and staying in balance in the middle of that. And eyes open, yeah, very, very important. Eyes open and focus on the rising sun. And you can do a few minutes with one leg, a few minutes with the other leg. But it's not just about the posture, it's about the intention with which you do it. So having this intention, and a sun is rising for a new future, my soul is calling, something in my soul is going to tell me what's my purpose, what's my destiny going to be. I turn around, I'm not looking back anymore, I'm looking forward, I'm ready, and I'm in balance, ready to go forth. So that would be the right attitude.
That sounds beautiful. It sounds powerful. It sounds invigorating. And it sounds like exactly what I need to do tomorrow morning.
I do.
Thank you. And with that, I thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And I thank you, Ardaas ji, as always. We look forward to seeing you next week for episode 10, the finale of season 2, from victim to victor. So we see you at the finish line of victory. See you all next week.
So now, thank you, Nyana. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. See you next week. So now.